Hello everyone. This is Indian Central School Community Engagement Webinar titled Life After Lockdown in a New Normal During COVID-19. I'm Shaini, your host and moderator for today. First of all, a warm welcome to all our viewers who are tuned into today's webinar. Greatly appreciate your presence. The most severe pandemic in the recent history was the 1918 Spanish flu, which took the lives of about 50 million people. And now we have the greatest health crisis of our time, the COVID-19 pandemic. I think one of the greatest challenges that we are facing since World War II. Pandemic, the word comes from a Greek word, pan, which means all, and demos, people or population. WHO defines pandemic as a worldwide spread of a new disease. And since its emergence in Asia last year, COVID-19 pandemic is spreading like a wave to every continent, and approximately 400,000 people have lost their lives so far. This webinar focuses on some of the main aspects of COVID-19. Please allow me to introduce our panel members who have joined us from various spheres of life. Our chairman of Indian Central School, as well as Aspire Indian International School, and the vice chairman of Pakistan English School, Mr. K.O. Matthew. Our three eminent doctors who are part of this program, Dr. Roy Cherian, working as a physician at Infectious Diseases Hospital Kuwait for the past 23 years. Dr. Unnikrishnan S, a senior physician at Dar Al Saha Polyclinic Kuwait. We also have Dr. P.C. Nair, who is a visiting consultant at the Pulmonology Department at Dar Al Saha Polyclinic, Kuwait. Two of our doctors, Dr. P.C. Nair and Dr. Unnikrishnan, have not been able to make it in person today, but we can view them, connect with them through their video messages. This is due to certain commitments. We also have 5 parents on the panel today with us, Mr. Tahir, Mrs. Merlin, Mrs. Sunita, Mrs. Abita, and Mrs. Dilip from Dar Al Salam Group of Schools. We welcome all our members on the panel to this webinar. Greatly appreciate your presence today with us. Apart from our panel members, a word of gratitude to our Vice Chairman, Mr. Ahmed Al-Falah, who's always been a strong source of encouragement. To our principals of the 3 schools, Dr. Shanta Maria James, Principal, Indian Central School, Mrs. Sanoobar Farooq, Principal of Pakistan English School and College, and the Principal of Aspire Indian International School, Mrs. Anju Dhiman. Thank you so much for your cooperation, guidance, and support at every juncture. We would also like to thank Ms. Stephanie Matthew, who is the executive member of the webinar and a strong force behind today's presentation. Our thanks also to Mr. Anish Nair from Dar Al Saha Polyclinic, who was instrumental in arranging the doctors for today. Above all, our deepest appreciation and gratitude to all our frontline workers all across the globe, here in Kuwait, and especially our parents who are serving as frontline workers. May they be doctors, nurses, technicians, pharmacists, sanitation workers, policemen. There are so many people out there who are rising to the occasion, battling COVID-19 and saving thousands of lives and making a difference in the life of so many people. Thank you so much for that caring heart that you have. At the very outset, I request our chairman, Mr. K.O. Matthew, a dynamic leader and a passionate educationist, to share a few words. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Shaini, our parents on the panel, and our doctors for being here with our community today to address some of the most pressing questions that we all have concerning the coronavirus. But before we do that, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about our vision, which we use to operate and conduct our day-to-day affairs. We have 3 schools in the Jalib Schools complex: Indian Central School, Pakistan English School, and Aspire Indian International School. Our vision is to provide state-of-the-art holistic education within an environment that nurtures young children with compassion, curiosity, and creativity. Being in the leadership team, it is my privilege and responsibility to reach out to our community in several ways. Over the last 7 weeks, we've conducted e-learning classes with our teachers, supervisors, and vice principals across all our schools: Indian Central School, Pakistan English School, and Aspire Indian International School, for which I'd like to take this opportunity to thank for their timely efforts and dedication during these uncertain times. As a part of our community engagement initiatives, we committed to producing a series of albums showcasing some of the finest talent across our schools in various departments and organizing a set of webinars on key topics of interest over the last 7 weeks. I'm delighted to announce that as a school, we've delivered on our promise, and this will be the final webinar in our 7-week series this academic term. So to conclude this series, we've decided to bring you a grand event through the amalgamation of efforts by our 3 schools. Thank you once again to our panelists, parents, and all those across our school communities for tuning in to this live webinar today. We hope you enjoy and take part in this discussion by writing in your questions to the doctors. I wish you all good health and a wonderful summer break.
Thank you, sir, for your words and especially your efforts in bringing in awareness to the community through the various webinars, and also for turning this webinar to a reality, which is the need of the hour. Thank you so much. COVID-19 is much more than a health crisis, where on one side, travels are limited, airports are closed, citizens quarantined, closure of schools, public and worship places, students into virtual learning, people working from home, online shopping, and literally all the meetings are on virtual platforms. On the other side, this pandemic has created social, economical, as well as political crisis, from which I think it will take a long time for the world to recover. Apprehensions and anxieties are in every mind. But as Karen Sullivan once said, in the face of adversity, we have a choice. We can be bitter or better. How we view adversity affects how we conquer it. The focal point of today's webinar is life after lockdown. And in a way, it's telling us we need not be bitter, but how we can develop that strength and fortitude to emerge as a better person during our crisis time. Now, there are so many queries in the minds of our viewers and our parents who are watching us on COVID-19, its symptoms, treatments, remedies, preventive measures. And to answer some of these pressing questions, we have Dr. Unnikrishnan, who will be sharing from his years of experience and also his insights through this video. So let's watch this video clip.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to participate in this webinar. It is my pleasure to speak to the Indian Central School community. Please accept my inability to attend the program in person in view of my clinical commitments. I hope we will be able to address some of your concerns and queries regarding COVID-19. With the efficient management of various government bodies in Kuwait, we are on the process of recovering from this pandemic. However, please be aware that knowledge regarding screening, treatment modalities, and preventive strategies to combat this disease are changing at a rapid pace. Keeping this in mind, I will now proceed to answer some of the questions posted by ICS community regarding COVID-19. Question number 1. What makes coronavirus so contagious? SARS-CoV-2, or the causative agent of COVID-19, is a coronavirus very much like SARS-CoV-1, which caused death in about 800 over people worldwide in 2003, and MERS-CoV, or Middle East Coronavirus Syndrome, which caused significant number of deaths in countries like Saudi Arabia in 2012. The difference in COVID-19 virus is that it possesses a unique spike protein which helps in its fast entry into human cells. Secondly, the virus can remain alive for a variable period of time depending upon the type of surface it lands on. So, if you happen to touch a surface which got contaminated by an infected person, you can easily get infected provided you don't take adequate precautions. So this virus is highly contagious and spreads from person to person at an alarming rate. Question number 2. How can we differentiate between a flu and COVID-19? In a common cold, you may have running nose, sneezing, etc. with or without fever. Similarly, flu or viral fever also presents with fever, body ache and headache. Both these conditions usually improve by a week or so. But in COVID, the fever is often associated with sore throat, severe body ache, headache and tiredness. Fever is usually high grade and lasts more than a week, and subsequently the person can develop cough and breathing difficulty. If he develops complications like pneumonia. Some may also present with temporary loss of smell or diarrhea. So in short, anyone who has got a prolonged illness with a high-grade fever, later on developing cough and breathing difficulty, merits a high index of suspicion for COVID-19. Can people with previous COVID-19 infection become reinfected? At the moment, there are limited information regarding this. The available data on antibody response to COV-2 has shown that recovery from COVID-19 might confer some immunity against reinfection, at least for a short period of time. But these are results of animal model studies. Remember, the flu vaccine given for seasonal flu in certain countries provide only short-term protection, and you need to take such vaccinations every year. So as of now, nature of immune response in a person who already had COVID is lacking. But we can presume that likelihood of a reinfection, at least in the immediate period, is almost nil. Are there lifestyle changes? Question number 4. Are there lifestyle changes we can make to boost our immunity and prevent virus from taking hold in our body? Complications and death rate due to COVID-19 is more, especially in the elderly population. That is, people with heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure and persons with chronic lung diseases. The immune response is poor in such individuals. Most of these diseases are related to your lifestyle, either in their onset or progression. Some people are reluctant to take medications for diabetes and high blood pressure because they think that once they start medication, it has to be taken on a lifelong basis. And by the time they make up their mind, years later, they would have already developed complications due to uncontrolled diabetes and blood pressure. So you need to address lifestyle modifications sufficiently early. You should eat a balanced diet rich in fruits and vegetables. Avoid smoking, and if you're alcoholic, you must reduce your alcoholic consumption. You need to have adequate sleep. You must exercise regularly. The recommendation is at least brisk walking, at least 150 minutes per week is more than sufficient. You must comply with the treatment of diabetes, hypertension and other diseases as per the advice of your doctor. By this way, you can avoid complications of this sort of diseases and maintain your health and immune status. And this completes my talk. My sincere thanks to Chairman, Principal and members of Indian Central School community and our moderator, Ms. Tiffany, who gave me an opportunity to share my views on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for sharing your thoughts on the various issues that were discussed. That was really quite informative and educative. Dr. Roy, it is said that people beyond a certain age, that is around 50 years and with previous health issues, they are more prone to COVID-19. Is there any significant reason for this?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. People of all ages can be infected by the virus. Older people and those staying at nursing homes, people with pre-existing medical conditions are more vulnerable to become severely ill. WHO advises all ages to protect themselves by good hand and respiratory hygiene. Due to the physiological changes that come with aging and the potential underlying health conditions, old age group are at risk of contracting the virus and developing severe disease. We have seen that age of 50 and above have a higher incidence rate of contracting corona, COVID virus. We have seen around 31%. Those people, this age group requiring hospitalization was around 45%. And those requiring ICU care was 53%, and those who who became fatal was 80%. So definitely the comorbid conditions play a big role in this. Presence of hypertension, obesity, chronic lung disease, diabetes mellitus, heart disease, chronic kidney disease, all have a role in increasing the mortality of such patients. We have seen 50% of hypertensives become 50% of the patients who have fatalities are hypertensives. Around the same percentage of 50% are obese, especially with a body mass index of 40 or higher. Chronic lung disease and bronchial asthma, 35%. Diabetes and hypertension, heart disease, 30%. And chronic kidney disease also around 30%. So the basic underlying factor in the old age is because of the low immunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Roy. We are now getting into the heart of the topic, life after lockdown. We will be definitely gaining a few more insights from Dr. Roy in a few minutes from now. Recently, the South Indian state of Kerala earned a lot of praise for its effective and efficient handling of the COVID-19 cases and was highly lauded for its efficient primary healthcare system. Here's a short video clip showing one of the efforts by the state to manage the virus through contact tracing. Let's watch the video clip.
For Bindu and Girija, two frontline health workers in Kerala, the day starts early. They have at least 25-30 houses to visit today. These also include those under quarantine for COVID-19. Over 60,000 people have returned to Kerala in last few weeks, almost 55,000 from other states. Kerala government has an ambitious task in front of it to follow up with each person who has come back.
COVID-19 ഭാഗമായിട്ട് ഇച്ചിരി നമുക്ക് ഒരു പ്രയാസമുണ്ട്. കാരണം നമ്മൾ എല്ലാ ദിവസവും ആ ലൊക്കേഷനിൽ തന്നെ ചെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാണ് നമ്മൾ ഈ അപ്ഡേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാറുള്ളത്. പേടി ഇപ്പം അതങ്ങ് മാറി വരുന്നുണ്ട്. ആദ്യ സമയത്തൊക്കെ കുറച്ച് പേടിയുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഇപ്പം പിന്നെ നമ്മൾ ജോലിയുടെ ഭാഗമായി.
Contact tracing in Kerala is being done both physically, that's visiting people under house quarantine, and also through phone calls, ensuring regular updates.
വയസ്സിലെ കുട്ടികൾക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും പനിയോ അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ചുമയോ എന്തെങ്കിലും കാര്യങ്ങളൊന്നും തോന്നുന്നുണ്ടോ? No fever.
For most health workers, work related to COVID-19 is being done along with their regular duties, like checking on pregnant women, the elderly, or even giving monsoon updates.
Every health circle has a
login and given a login, and then we have to confirm that person to quarantine, whether it is quarantine or not.
അമ്മയ്ക്ക് ടെൻഷൻ ഉണ്ട്. അമ്മ ഡെയിലി വിളിക്കും, കരയൊക്കെ ചെയ്യും. പിന്നെ ഹസ്ബൻഡും മോളും പറയുന്നത് എന്തോ വന്നാലും ഞങ്ങൾ ഒരുമിച്ച്.
I have been in institutional quarantine first ever since I was back from Chennai, and now I'm in strict home quarantine. The police department and the ASHA workers have called me. In fact, my day starts with a call from the ASHA worker inquiring about my health and asking whether I need any support. I think at this point of time, such calls gives immense confidence and a feeling that we don't have to worry about anything.
You can call them COVID-19 warriors, foot soldiers. All of them have families that worry for them. Worldwide, Kerala has been appreciated for its COVID-19 surveillance, and these are the people who are at the forefront.
That was a video by the state of Kerala, how it's managing the virus through contact tracing. Dr. Roy, what do you think are the key reasons behind Kerala's success, and how other countries can learn from the way they are handling it?
As India's 1.3 billion people struggle to cope up with the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the country's 28 states stand head and shoulders above the rest, Kerala. Kerala has been so successful in flattening the curve that many speak admiringly of a Kerala model. Kerala has not only tackled COVID-19, but earlier catastrophes like the Nipah virus and the natural disasters with death. If you recall, in India, the first case was in Kerala. In January 31st, a medical student traveled from Wuhan, China to Kerala. This started discussions on a negative spillover effect of international travel, which has been a feature of Kerala's development trajectory. In fact, in February, Kerala declared COVID-19 a state-level disaster and started to close schools. Early March, Maharashtra and Kerala were the leading states in COVID-19 positive cases. Number of cases started increasing as more international travel continued. Swift action in identifying possible contacts or contact tracing and quarantining them started to show results by early April. This sustained efforts of test, trace, isolate, and treat started to yield results in mid-April. So much that Kerala slipped from the second position to the 10th position in number of positive COVID-19 cases, which was reflected by the high recovery rates, the low fatalities. This drew international attention, much like the Kerala model of development. So what is the Kerala model of development? Since 1970s, Kerala's leadership has emphasized on development of health and education. The state developed government-funded primary health care and education, but also allowed private participation in tertiary health care and education. Successive governments in Kerala continued the emphasis on universal literacy and thus was able to seize the opportunities provided by globalization. Public health and hygiene have never taken a backseat even during privatization. The general level of awareness of this pandemic is high, especially among women who due to high female literacy, which is reflected in as an example of high infant morbidity. This is not an indicator of ill health, but indicative of our mother's awareness. In case of COVID-19, the combination of high level of awareness and a robust health sector, Kerala has been able to contain the rapid spread swiftly to a large aging and a migrant population. Kerala is endowed with an army of skillful population and a large pool of medics and paramedics. Now, how will the rest of the world replicate? Unarguably difficult. Why? Because the rest of the states have less investment and health and education. Now, what are the practical measures they could do is they could start with large investments in social sector and make population aware of the gravity of the situation to tackle at an individual level. In order to flatten the curve, they should improve the health sector. Secondly, public goods distribution. Markets fail. During a pandemic, markets fail, jobs are lost, and no salary, making the WHO policy to test, trace, isolate, and treat impossible. The basic needs of a citizen should be met with an efficient public goods distribution. This is where Kerala has scored. Social mobilization. Thirdly, quarantine the infected and deal with the in-migrant workers by community participation. In addition to this, Kerala launched a campaign mode like Break the Chain campaign to setting up community kitchens by women self-help groups to providing free accommodation to the in-migrants. During home quarantine, when there was no one to bring essential supplies, police promptly delivered. When schools were closed, the poor parents who relied on free afternoon school lunches for their kids had their meal delivered at home. Finally, the Chief Minister and the Honorable Health Minister worked in tandem, giving out daily reports and dispelling fake news. Kerala has built its tradition of decentralized governance, transparency, public trust, and government accountability. This is how Kerala has, this is the Kerala model of dealing with the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Well, that was a commendable effort by the state of Kerala, and congratulate and appreciate all who were working in the forefront and also behind the scenes. We have a few parents in the panel today from the 3 schools with a lot of their concerns and queries. I now invite Mr. Tahir, who is a parent from Pakistan English School. Mr. Tahir, please go ahead with your question. You can talk to the doctor.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to ask doctor, once the lockdown lifts, what are the preventative measures people should take to stay safe? Thank you.
Do you mean in a school or in general?
In general, yeah, in general.
See, don't be in a hurry to rush back to the normal, so long as the vaccine has not been discovered yet. There are still chances of getting infected. So you should still follow the same routine, lifestyle, and have and change the behavioral patterns. Avoid overcrowding, avoid unessential travel, if possible to work from home, and avoid any gatherings or meetings. On a personal level, continue wearing the face mask, use the hand sanitizer whenever you have any cough or sneezing. If you don't have a tissue paper, cough or sneeze on the elbow, and try to that's about it. And if you have fever, cold, or any of the symptoms, please go to your medical provider.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Mr. Tahir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I now invite Mrs. Merlin. She's a parent from Indian Central School. Mrs. Merlin, you can talk to the doctor.
Good morning, Dr. Roy.
Good morning.
My question is, what are some practical measures schools and offices should take when they reopen to prevent COVID-19 virus from spreading?
Children are the more likely to be asymptomatic, less likely to be hospitalized, much less likely to be fatal. However, other school workers are also equally at risk. Schools to open in small batches, preferably the smaller age groups, because they are less likely to be symptomatic. And for working parents, child care is taken care of that way. There should be a safety coordinator in the schools for implementation of safety procedures. All group events and open houses should be cancelled. Breaks should be in the classroom. Less school hours and less curriculum as well. Parents should report sick children or any children with any underlying health conditions and try to avoid sending them to schools. On a practical level, schools should have a separate entry and exits. Temperature checks should be frequent, especially on entry, preferably with a thermal camera or a thermometer. All children should wear masks. All children should be given facilities for hand washing, or they should carry an alcohol sanitizer. Social distancing is very important for with 6 feet or 2 meters. Classrooms should have plastic partitions between each table, and between each table, windows should be open for ventilation. You should identify clinics or hospitals in case any child, God forbid, develops symptoms, so that they can be transferred to these areas. I guess that will be covers everything.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mrs. Merlin. Well, we believe that definitely these preventive measures will help mitigate the impact of the pandemic. Now we have a video message from Dr. P.C. Nair, who will be talking to us about life in a new normal, travel and mental health. He couldn't be with us today, but will be sharing a few thoughts from his vast experiences and knowledge. So here's the video for you.
Good morning. Post-Covid-19 era will definitely be different from what we have been enjoying in the pre-Covid times. The scientific community and the public are now fighting against a novel coronavirus. We need to know more about its infectivity, pathogenesis, treatment, and long-term effects of this pandemic. We should not panic now. Anxiety and stress are common, but definitely we will contain this deadly virus. Although the mortality is low at 2 to 3%, personal, social, and economic burdens are huge. With this introduction, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. P.C. Nair. Let me thank the organizers of this webinar, the Indian Central School Kuwait, especially Mrs. Tiffany and Mr. Anish Nair, the sponsors and the management of the Indian Central School for organizing this targeted webinar for students and their parents. Let me go to my first question. How long might it take to return to work, school, and normal life since the lockdown? I would rather say that this is $1 million question. The whole world was in various stages of lockdown, and the unlocking process are in various stages. As per scientific evidence, the following conclusions can be arrived. 1. We are going to live with the virus for long, like the H1N1, the flu virus, the Sars virus, etc., according to WHO. But definitely, it will be with less infectivity, less risk, less mortality and morbidity. Recent ICMR prediction using mathematical modeling predict that the pandemic might end within 2 to 3 months. I keep my fingers crossed. The containment protocols might continue for a minimum of 6 months or till the end of 2020. Second question, what is the travel advice for expatriates returning home? The simple advice for travel for now and the immediate future would be 1. Either you postpone or cancel the travel unless it is really necessary or if it is a real emergency. The second option would be take the risk of infection, quarantine, hospitalization, etc. Now the risk of travel increases due to the following reasons. 1. Recirculation of air in a closed space in the aeroplanes. 2. Contact with multiple sites during travel. 3. Presence of virus in multiple objects and sites, although it's a low-risk category according to CDC. Many times the 6 feet distancing, so-called social distancing, may be compromised during travel and you can carry a risk on it. In case the travel is unavoidable, please strictly follow social distancing, avoid hand-to-face contact and spread, frequent hand washing with soap and water. Definitely the disadvantages of travel during the COVID and immediate post-COVID period would be the travel is going to be expensive, of minimum of 25 to 30% increase in ticket rates. You need to spend more time in the airports, both during the departure and arrival terminals. Big planes like the 787 and 380 might disappear from the market due to economic reasons. Disinfection and quarantines will continue. The third question was how to manage anxiety and stress as parents. You all know anxiety and stress during this period is like gasoline on fire. I would say that it is a mass phenomenon applicable to young and old, students and teachers, children and parents. Anxiety and stress are interchangeably used by the common people, but are different phenomena. Both produces changes in the human body, physically as headache, palpitation, muscle tension, or emotionally as irritability, insomnia, tachycardia, and headache. Stress always should have a stimulus, but it usually wanes off quickly. Whereas anxiety will have a stimulus, but it lingers in the body for a longer period of time. That's the basic difference between stress and anxiety. Now the question is why we develop anxiety and stress. It is due to the following reasons. 1, it's the uncertainty that you follow. The human brain is hardwired during the time of stress, releasing a lot of hormones, releasing factors. Humans always think of the worst scenario first, and you always feel the worst outcome, or you may double or underestimate the outcome. So these are the main reasons why, as parents or as teachers or other people, you develop anxiety and stress. Now the question comes how to overcome anxiety and stress. I would say that maintain a normal daily routine like getting up, sleep time, meals, shower, etc. The second is, I would call it as a refilling phenomenon. Refilling means you think of your daily activities. More than that, you try to do new learning things. Exercise, yoga, and most important thing at this time would be spend quality time with the family. That's a phenomenon called connections and disconnections. Now, what is connection? You try during the stress and anxiety to connect with friends, family, neighbors, and relatives, either by phone, contact, etc. But most important thing is you try to disconnect yourself from the TV, from the media. But I would like to say that TV and media and mobile system should have a limited time. That is called disconnection. As parents, I would always say that don't be a perfect parent, but be a okay parent. No stringent rules to children during this time and be more liberal. Now, the next question is, as teachers, how to counsel students? They are concerned about coronavirus or how it affects their future. As teachers, we should never put them in panic mode. Example, limit the talk regarding corona deaths, travel ban, isolation, quarantine, etc. Encourage playful activities than strict learning protocols. We should always tell them that COVID-19 disease is asymptomatic and it's only a very mild disease in children and adolescents. Now we have to teach them the advantages of social distancing, hand hygiene, cough etiquette, etc. The most important thing when you talk to them is teach them how we manage the 1918 Spanish flu, 2002 SARS epidemic, and we have the 2015 MERS. We came out successfully with these things. We should always tell them that the future is safe and we learned a lot from the previous pandemics. As I said previously, always encourage the phenomenon of connections and disconnections for stress management for children. Now, the next question is work after coronavirus. Definitely, I would say that everything will get normalized. Maybe after a few months, schools might reopen. After a few months, travel will come back. But of course, we will have our own limitations of social distancing. We have to keep our personal hygiene. Will continue for a few more years. The economic burden will be huge globally. There will be the rise and fall of jobs sector, and that will continue for some more time. But I assure that life will continue unabated. I conclude by the words of Lord Krishna's advice to Arjuna in the wake or in the war of Kurukshetra 5,000 years back. Being a warrior, committed to people, the dharma was to fight and not to worry who he was fighting or the outcome of the war. So we will continue as warriors against COVID-19. Thank you.
Well, our viewers were quite apprehensive about so many issues that were discussed, and I hope it's going to be highly beneficial to all our viewers who are listening to the doctor. Thank you, doctor, for briefing us. A very interesting term that we are hearing quite frequently in news these days is the term herd immunity. Before we dive a little more deeper into this term, let's watch a video.
As if you need more proof that 2020 is shaping up to be an interesting year, just take a look at some of the year's most popular buzzwords so far. First, it was social distancing, then it was flattening the curve, and now it's herd immunity. But what exactly is herd immunity? Does it really mean we all need to get infected to get immunity? Let's take a look at what the experts are saying and get COVID-19 herd immunity explained. Simply put, herd immunity is what happens when a significant portion of the population is immune to an infection, which slows down or stops the spread of the infection. Herd immunity isn't about protecting each individual person, it's really about preventing a widespread outbreak of infection. Herd immunity means that each person who does contract the infection won't be able to spread it to as many, if any, other people. The more people in the group or the herd that are immune to the infection, the less easily the infection can spread through the population. Immunity is most important for protecting the most vulnerable and at-risk people in our communities. Older people, very young children, pregnant women, and people with underlying health issues stand a higher risk of expecting serious complications if they contract an infection. People with compromised immune systems, like cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy, are also at higher risk from infection. And these vulnerable people can't be vaccinated due to the potential for serious side effects from even the weakened vaccine, so they rely on herd immunity to keep themselves safe. It's important to note that herd immunity only works for infections that spread through person-to-person contact. Some infections spread only through contact with infected surfaces, not people, so herd immunity is ineffective at preventing their spread. For example, you might contract a tetanus infection after stepping on a rusty old nail, but you won't be able to spread that infection to other people that you come into contact with, so herd immunity is irrelevant to tetanus infections. For infections that do spread from person to person, like COVID-19, once a certain percentage of the population is immune to the infection, its ability to spread slows or stops.
Well, that was a video on herd immunity. That sounds quite interesting, but we are a little bit inquisitive as well. I'd like to invite our other parents who are on the panel to ask their questions. We have Mrs. Sunita with us. Mrs. Sunita is a parent from Indian Central School. Mrs. Sunita, you can ask your question to the doctor.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, doctor.
Morning.
Can you tell us your view on herd immunity and whether you think it could stop the coronavirus?
Yes, as you have seen the slide prior to this, just a brief review about the herd immunity. When most of the population is immune to an infectious disease, this provides indirect protection or herd immunity or herd protection to those who are non-immune. Example, now 80% of the population is immune. That means 4 out of 5 will not get sick and hence will not spread the disease. So usually 70 to 90% immunity is required to achieve herd immunity. There were many diseases like measles, mumps, polio, and chickenpox, which is rare in US. Why? Because most of the people are vaccinated there. So one method of getting herd immunity is either by natural infections or vaccines. Now, if we require, if natural infection has to occur in COVID-19, we require this will, the number of cases will increase, the mortality will increase, the hospital admissions will be increased, and our healthcare will collapse. So, in order to avoid that, the best way to until we get a vaccine, we must do physical distancing, maintain the same number or reduce the number of cases. Thereby, we have some time before we get till we get our vaccine. The worst case, or what happens in case of now that lockdown might be relaxed in certain places, there will be no physical distancing. The more infections will happen, more admissions will occur in the hospitals, deaths will happen, and the hospitals will be fully overwhelmed. So to require immunity, in fact, in New York, which is a hotspot for the coronavirus a few months back, to only 1/3 of the population has been infected. So we still have a long way to go before we reach herd immunity by natural infection. So it is better to do physical distancing and reduce the same number, maintain the same number, or reduce the number of cases.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mrs. Sunita. Well, we have just time for maybe one or two questions more. Dr. Roy, if you could throw some light on these questions. Mrs. Abita is a parent from Aspire Indian International School. Mrs. Abita, you can ask your question to the doctor.
Thank you, ma'am. Hi, doctor. My question is there a chance that the virus can come back once the number of new cases drop?
See, your question was if the number of new cases drop. It is not most of the cases are asymptomatic, so there is still a chance of spread. Unless all the cases are without virus, yes, the virus cannot come back. So even though the new cases drop, the cases present at the moment can still transmit the infection. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have time for just one more question. Mrs. Dilip is with us. She's a parent from Indian Central School. Mrs. Dilip, please proceed with your question.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Dr. Roy.
Good morning.
Doctor, what are the long-term consequences for those who survive COVID-19?
Yes. The COVID-19, one of the symptoms is pneumonia, and in some patients, they go into respiratory failure, and it causes permanent lung damage or fibrosis. This is mostly seen in older age group, around 50 or 65 years, people living in nursing home, people with chronic lung disease, and morbid obesity and diabetes. In some, most of the patients after hospital treatment, they become weak and requires aggressive rehabilitation. Thirdly, mental health. Post-hospital admission, they are more prone for post-traumatic stress disorder, especially those who have been admitted to the ICU. They can come with anxiety, depression, and cognitive impairment, manifested by diminished memory, decreased attention, decreased mental sharpness, or ability to solve problems. Coronavirus causes a hypercoagulable state, meaning the blood becomes sticky, and it can affect your lungs, and it can affect your heart and your brain, thereby leading to chances of blocks in all these areas. So there are chances of getting heart attacks, there are chances of getting stroke, and blockage in the lungs, producing a disease called pulmonary embolism.
Thank you,
Thank
doctor.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Dilip. Well, we now come to our live question and answer session. The floor is now open to all our viewers. If you have any queries on COVID-19, its symptoms, tests, treatments, preventive measures, anything you want to know, please feel free to do so. You can talk to the doctor. All you have to do is just type your question in the live Q&A, and we will be reaching out to you. I think this is a very rare chance, a unique opportunity that you are getting to ask to the doctor whatever concerns you have. Please, all you have to do is type your question in the live Q&A. Yes, I think we already have a question here. Doctor, one of our viewers would like to know, is it possible to contract the virus from someone that doesn't show any symptoms?
Yes, coronavirus is asymptomatic in 80% of the population. So yes, we can we can contract the virus from a person who is even asymptomatic.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we have more questions coming up. This is from another viewer. What should we do if we think we might have coronavirus?
Okay. Once you I'm sure everybody knows the symptoms of coronavirus: fever, cough, sore throat, and headaches, body pain. Once you know that you have the symptoms, better to be isolated, stay at home, stay in a single room with bath attached. Most of the cases are asymptomatic, or 80% are asymptomatic. So have your regular meals, have normal sleep pattern, and take symptomatic treatment. If you have fever, take paracetamol. If you have a sore throat, do gargling, and follow and wear a mask. Isolate yourself from other family members in the house. Follow the hand hygiene of washing hands frequently with soap. If you have cough or sneezing, follow the respiratory hygiene. Cough on a tissue paper or on your elbow and wash it off. And in case you do develop symptoms, call your health provider and get treated.
Thank you, Doctor. We have more questions coming up in the live Q&A. This one is from another viewer. Is there any chance of getting COVID-19 during blood transfusion?
Data does not show any evidence of getting corona during blood transfusion, but eventually we will know as more studies come forward.
Okay, Doctor, there is one more question. This is from another viewer. Is there a threat of virus being carried from a COVID survivor to the next generation through their offspring?
No, there is no chance of getting the coronavirus from a survivor because it is mainly a respiratory virus, so less chance of them getting once they pass their incubation period and their quarantine period.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have one more question. Can this virus infect a growing fetus of a pregnant woman who herself is infected?
Okay, from published cases so far, no traces of the novel coronavirus has been found in the placenta or umbilical cord in the studies reviewed, which make it highly unlikely that a mother can infect her child while in womb. But this could change as more information become available. However, there was a study, there was an article recently, out of 110 babies, only two became positive, one in China and one in Peru. The reason, we are not sure. Probably the child could have been infected after delivery if the mother has had symptoms.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Another of our viewer would like to know, how is this new virus different from the coronavirus that causes SARS or MERS?
First of all, this is a new virus and nobody has immunity to this virus. It is highly contagious and it can produce the almost similar symptoms as the SARS and corona, the MERS, but it can produce, the severity is much higher and chances of fatality is also there, unlike the other coronavirus.
Yeah, we have one more question here. What does flattening the curve in the COVID-19 pandemic mean?
Okay. Flattening the curve is a public health strategy to slow down the spread of COVID-19 during the pandemic. The curve being flattened is the epidemic curve, a visual representation of the number of infected people needing healthcare over time. During a pandemic, a healthcare system can break down when the number of people infected exceeds the capacity of healthcare systems' ability to care for them. Flattening the curve means slowing the spread of epidemic. so that peak number of people requiring care at a time is reduced and the healthcare system does not exceed its capacity. Flattening the curve relies on social distancing. Complementary measures is to increase the healthcare capacity and to raise the line. Example, in case of corona, we try to increase the ICU beds and the ventilators. I would like to show you the graph. I'm not sure if it is visible. This is the active cases on the, going up, and this is the timeline. Now, this is the curve. Suppose you, and this is the healthcare capacity, right? Now, if the number of cases suddenly increase, it exceeds the healthcare capacity, and the healthcare system will be overwhelmed, and thereby the treatment of COVID as well as non-COVID patients will be compromised. Whereas if you flatten the curve, this is how you flatten the curve. That can be achieved only with social distancing. Thereby, you reduce the number of cases, and your healthcare is totally equipped to deal with the cases, the corona COVID-19 cases. In the meantime, we can try to increase the healthcare capacity by making new facilities like field care hospitals, vacating other hospitals for COVID-19, and increasing the ICU beds and the ventilator. This is actually a time, this is flattening the curve is a time buying to help your healthcare to be able to treat all the coronavirus cases.
Thank you, Doctor. We have so many questions coming up, but we just have time for one more. This is from one of our viewers. What are some of the strong indications that a person needs to contact the clinic for having his COVID-19 test done?
Strong indicators?
That a person needs to contact the clinic for having his COVID-19 test done.
Yeah, if the patient is belonging to the older age group, if the patient has underlying comorbid conditions, like as I mentioned earlier, the diabetes, hypertension, smoker, chronic kidney disease, it is preferable to go and get yourself tested in case if they are symptomatic, or they have a contact with a coronavirus patient in the recent past. And if patients are also have severe symptoms like breathing difficulty, tightness of chest, it is advisable to go to the clinic.
Thank you, Doctor. That was an amazing response by all our viewers, and I appreciate and thank all who were part of it. Dr. Roy, finally, a piece of advice or just a takeaway message that you would like to give to all our viewers who are watching us today.
Okay. Now, stay safe, stay home. Prevention is better than cure. Respect others by wearing masks. Wash hands frequently, and avoid unnecessary travel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have come to the end of this wonderful session. Thanks to all who participated in it. Our special thanks to all our panel members, our chairman, our esteemed doctors who were with us, and especially our parents. Thank you all. We were privileged to have you with us today. Special thanks to all our viewers who have tuned in to make this webinar a huge success. Please visit our community engagement page of ICS Kuwait website for more resources on COVID-19. As the proverb goes, every cloud has a silver lining, and this too will pass. We'll definitely come out of it. Life will turn back to normalcy. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy.